Prostrating on a turban, hat or cap or anything that prevents the forehead from touching the ground creates an obstacle. Scholars have disagreed on this. If a person prostrates on something that moves with them, like a suit or shirt, or lets a cap fall on their forehead, is direct contact with the ground necessary? Most jurists, including Hanafi, Maliki and Hanbali schools, say the principle is to place the forehead directly on the ground, but prostrating on something is permissible without a valid reason. They cite the hadith of Anas ibn Malik, who said, "We prayed with the Prophet in extreme heat, and if one couldn't place his face on the ground, he would spread his garment and prostrate on it," narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. Imam Bukhari mentioned Al-Hasan al-Basri said companions prostrated on turbans and caps, showing its validity. However, it's disliked without necessity, like extreme heat, where one can prostrate on anything, attached or not, like a mat. They said that the principle is for a person to place their forehead directly on the ground, and it is permissible for them to prostrate on anything without a valid reason. They supported the validity of this by the hadith of Anas ibn Malik, may Allah be pleased with him, who said, "We used to pray with the Prophet, peace be upon him, in extreme heat, and if one of us could not place his face on the ground, he would spread his garment and prostrate on it." This hadith was narrated by Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim. Imam Bukhari in his Sahih mentioned Al-Hasan al-Basri's statement that the companions, may Allah be pleased with them, prostrated on their turbans and caps, indicating its validity. It is disliked without necessity, but permissible in extreme heat or similar situations, allowing prostration on anything attached or not, like a mat. The forehead is a prostration part, so prostrating on obstacles like feet is valid, e.g. wearing socks or gloves. The Shafi'is state that if something on the forehead prevents prostration and moves with the person like a robe, the prayer is invalid. They said the forehead is a part of prostration, so prostrating on an obstacle is permissible. For instance, wearing socks or gloves doesn't invalidate prayer. However, the Shafi'i stated that if something on the forehead prevents prostration and moves with the person like a robe, the prayer is invalid. They cited a hadith of Khabbab ibn al-Arat about the heat of the sand, which the Prophet did not excuse. This hadith, narrated by Imam Muslim and Al-Bayhaqi, refers to foreheads and palms. They said that if a person prays one with something on their forehead that prevents prostration like a robe or jacket that moves with them, their prayer is invalid. They cited a hadith of Khabbab ibn al-Arat who said, "We complained to the Prophet about the heat of the sand. He did not excuse us." This hadith, narrated by Imam Muslim and Al-Bayhaqi, mentions foreheads and palms. If the forehead doesn't touch the ground, he would have advised covering it. However, if someone prostrates with a long turban that doesn't move, Shafi'i scholars say their prayer is valid. They supported this with a hadith which, though authentic, is not explicit. It is the hadith of Khabbab ibn al-Arat who said, "We complained to the Prophet about the heat of the sand. He did not excuse us." This hadith was narrated by Imam Muslim, and Al-Bayhaqi mentions our foreheads and palms. If the forehead doesn't touch the ground, he would have advised covering it. If someone prostrates with something like a long turban on the ground, Shafi'i scholars say their prayer is valid. The majority opinion is that if a person prays with an obstacle or places an item on the ground due to heat or wears gloves, their prayer is valid. He said that if it weren't necessary for the worshipper to directly touch the ground with their forehead, he would have advised them to cover it. But if, for example, someone is wearing a long turban that is on the ground and doesn't move with them when they stand or sit, then according to the Shafi'i scholars, their prayer is valid. But the opinion of the majority of scholars is the more correct one, which is that if a person prays while having an obstacle like placing their cap, jacket or any item on the ground due to extreme heat, or if they are wearing gloves, then their prayer is valid and Allah knows best.